From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Thursday, March 27th. Here are today's headlines. Sudan's armed forces have regained control of Khartoum International Airport from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. The national military continues advances against the RSF in the capital. That's all according to sources in Port Sudan and Khartoum speaking to The National on Wednesday. The army has been locked in conflict with the RSF since April 2023, when simmering tensions between the two sides erupted into open warfare. The fighting has left tens of thousands dead and displaced millions, with both sides accused of atrocities.
This is the latest in a number of very strategic locations in and around Khartoum that the army has retaken out from RSF control.
The National's Kamal Tabikha reports from Cairo.
The RSF had been in control of large parts of the capital, especially a lot of the military's bases and resources, since early on in the war, since actually the first day of the war, April 15th, 2023, when the RSF launched a series of attacks on a number of locations in Khartoum. The army has, since 2023, been operating out of Port Sudan, which has become the new headquarters for the civilian government, which operates under the Transitional Sovereign Council, an army-dominated civilian government structure that has been ruling Sudan throughout the civil war.
The latest gains come less than a week after the armed forces reclaimed the presidential palace in central Khartoum that had been held by the RSF since early in the war. The army also announced its control over the southern campus of Khartoum University.
The RSF has managed to keep these key positions because it employed what analysts and sources in Sudan told us was a form of guerrilla warfare, essentially. Now, what was told to me by multiple analysts and some military sources in Khartoum was that the army and the Transitional Council were committed to the diplomatic efforts, the Jeddah platform, in the beginning because it thought that international mediation could end the war without the RSF claiming territories or without the violence that we have seen since April 2023. But I think the army soon realized that the international mediation wasn't going to be straightforward.
Military sources in Khartoum told The National that the RSF retreated from their positions in and around the airport to Jebel Aulia on Tuesday.
A lot of analysts are anticipating that what might actually happen is that now the country will be split, and the RSF a couple of months ago announced the formation of a civilian government that was going to administer the areas under their control. The RSF enjoys support from some African countries, and the SAF enjoys support from other African countries, including Egypt. And so when you have this sort of split situation where one side has an army, has a power base, has areas under their control, and so does the other one, it's not going to matter which side is being supported by the most people. And so what many are anticipating is that we could be dealing with this sort of civil war situation for years, with one side ruling in Khartoum and the east of the country, and then another side ruling in the west.
Istanbul City Council appointed Nuri Aslan as the temporary replacement for Ekrem Imamoglu on Wednesday. Imamoglu was officially suspended from his duties as Istanbul mayor following his arrest on corruption charges. Until now, Aslan served as the deputy chairman of the Istanbul Municipal Council under the leadership of Imamoglu himself. The National's Lizzie reports.
So the Municipal Council is kind of like the decision-making body of Istanbul, which is Turkey's largest city. It's 16 million residents. It's a hugely important base for any politician, and people who have run the city have often gone on to run the country, as is the case of President Erdogan.
Imamoglu was the leader of Istanbul until he was formally arrested over the weekend. He is now held on charges of establishing and leading a criminal organization, accepting bribes, misconduct in office, unlawfully recording personal data, and bid rigging. He's rejected all of those charges.
Istanbul municipality is under significant pressure given the charges against the mayor, Mr Imamoglu, and various of his associates within the municipality. Elections for choosing mayors happen every 5 years in Turkey, and Mr Imamoglu was re-elected last year for a second term. So he's been in power in Istanbul since 2019. There won't be local elections again until 2029, given that time frame.
Imamoglu's arrest is seen as a politically motivated move by Erdogan's administration ahead of the next presidential elections. It's prompted mass protests across Istanbul and other parts of Turkey, despite a ban. Over 1,000 have been arrested.
At the moment, critics of Mr. Erdogan say that the reason Mr. Imamoglu has been pursued with this legal case is because the Turkish government does not want to see Mr. Imamoglu run in future presidential elections against Mr. Erdogan. The Turkish government denies this and says that this is the rule of law being played out and that there has been a lot of corruption in Istanbul municipality. What happens now really is quite unclear. If, Mr. Imamoglu is imprisoned, there, could be some sort of temporary governance for a long time in the city.
In the world of football, the UAE secured a dramatic late win at the World Cup qualifiers in Riyadh, meaning they still have a chance to qualify. It's the latest from the team at the Asian section of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers.
It was a crazy few hours for UAE football, either side of midnight, really. After Tuesday night was a massive night of World Cup qualifying for the Asian section of the 2026 World Cup.
The National's Paul Radley reports.
The UAE were faced in a pretty precarious position at the start of the day. They were trailing for one of the top two places for World Cup qualification in their group goes directly to the World Cup. And the UAE are in third place currently, or they were at the start of Tuesday morning, basically competing for a place with Uzbekistan, who were 6 points ahead of them at the start of the day. Uzbekistan played their match against Iran first in Tehran and took a 2-2 draw in a very eventful game.
In a sudden turn, the manager of the team, Paul Bento, was sacked following the win.
Crazy thing to follow. So that all happened late on Tuesday night. Early Wednesday morning, the UAE Football Association announced that Paulo Bento, the coach that's overseen that game last night and has brought the UAE to this position, has been sacked just after around 2 years of him being in the helm. That's, to be honest, that's not a short stint by the standards of UAE football managers, but it was still a shock that Paulo Bento has been removed from his position. So the new coach has about just a little bit over 2 months to try and ready the team, ready for that big match against Uzbekistan at home in the UAE.
The last two matches will be played in June. That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live updates at our site. Yasmin Al-Taji, The National.